What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Blurt It Out. The chapter has dropped, so you know it's time for us to mobilize. We got a few things on the docket today. We got the new chapter, of course, 11,008. We're going to be talking about a little bit of agenda piece, some things going on Twitter, because that's always hilarious. We're going to be talking about Witchcraft Works, which I just recently finished. This Has Been Hotel video that I'm making that is really stupid, but funny, at least to me, and a little bit more about Final Fantasy VII. But before we get into that, let's hear a word from our sponsors. That's right, we have sponsors. It's me. I'm Sponsors. You are now listening to the Blurt Out podcast, which is available on your favorite podcast websites like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and more. Check the link in the description or search Blurt It Out wherever you podcast, and you will find greatness. Episodes are also uploaded on my main YouTube channel at Tyrant King Kuma and on the official podcast YouTube channel at Blurt It Out Podcast. Okay, as per usual, if you have not caught up to the latest episodes or chapters of what we're discussing today, there will be spoilers ahead.
Spoilers.
Now, getting into the chapter, One Piece has both the Shonen Jump cover and it has its own color spread for this week. So we're doing big things like always. Now, they have Gear 5 for the cover, and the way One Piece is written, it looks a lot like the remake style of One Piece, the Wit Studio animation remake style. I don't know if that's what it's supposed to be or not, and I can't read whatever's happening on this page, but it looks dope. The color spread is also clean. You got some of the One Piece ladies. You got Uda, you got Nami, you got Tashigi, Reiju, Hancock, and Robin. All just chilling, being fancy, drinking some wine, hanging out with, like, it looks like terriers. Basically, they have a bunch of dogs around them, looking gorgeous. I'm thoroughly upset that we still don't have Ulti and Perona in more color spreads, but this one does look nice. It's really surprising how often Uta shows up in these color spreads now. Like, she's showing up at alarming levels. I'm wondering what the comparison is to her and Jinbei being in color spreads, or even her and Yamato being in color spreads. That would be interesting to see. Now, as far as the chapter, we start back where we left off, where Korobu is talking to Ben, Augur, and Katarina about going to see Teach. And this is something that we've been waiting for a long time. We knew it was going to happen at some point, but finally seeing it kind of take action, it hits a little bit different. Because basically Korobu has all of this information about ancient weapons. He knows about Poseidon, and he knows about Pluton. And he's basically like, I can give Teach this information, but you gotta take me there first. So he's basically trying to bargain with stuff because Augur's about to shoot him in the face. And from what we've seen from Augur, like the past chapters and episodes, I am not doubtful that he could probably just blow his head off. Augur seems to be on that kind of time. Augur interestingly points out that there are people after the Commodore's life. So people are after Teach's life. And basically he's safeguarding that. Now, I wonder if he's just being incredibly cautious or if he actually has concerns about this. Because you would think Teach is pretty safe for people coming after his life. Like, he's not going to be stressing unless it's a Kaido level threat or like a Shanks level threat. So I feel like more than anything, he's just being, overly cautious, but it is what it is. He's being right-hand man. And to be honest, I don't see them losing in this scenario anyway, because either they take Korobu, he has the knowledge, and Teach gets that, or they take him, he doesn't have the knowledge, and they take his fruit and kill him. So, I mean, win-win. Either way, they come out on top. Back to shore, we have the battleships basically pulling out. So this is another thing I was talking about, was the Pacifista should be more durable than what the battleships can dish out pretty much. Like, cannon fire really shouldn't be effective to them. And I know they took out like one, but it looks like they're having trouble with the rest. To the point where they're like, all right, we gotta roll back. We can't do this. And I completely forgot that these levels of Pacifista have the bubble, basically, abilities. Like, not exactly Kuma's ability, but they have bubble-based abilities. So, like, they have these shields and everything, and they're, like, blocking bombs. They're probably sending them back. Plus, they have pacifista lasers. Like they have the whole 9 yards, and they're wiping out the entire set of battleships. We get some introduction shots to some vice admirals here. Some we already met, some I don't think we met before. Namely, I don't remember Hound and Guillotine being introduced last time. I remember Bluegrass, because I remember they introduced her power. I don't remember the other two. And what they basically decide is that they can't get through the pacifistas by attacking them, so they got to get them back on their side. The only way to do that is to take Bonnie's head. Now, with the way that would work is if they took Bonnie's head, I don't know that the order goes away. Because I think you would have to have someone who has a higher level of command over the pacifista give them a command. So as long as Bonnie has made that command, I don't know that killing her would immediately wipe that out. But, it's very possible they don't know that. It's very possible that's not the case. That's just the way I see it. Speaking of taking Bonnie's head, one of the vice admirals ends up pretty much right behind him, and he's using Roshiki techniques because he has like what he calls the 10-barrel finger gun. So he has Shigun, but with all 10 of his fingers instead of just the finger pistol. And it seems to be something specific to him because the name of the move he uses is Tosa Crunch, and his name is Vice Admiral Tosa, so I think that's specifically his thing. Kind of like certain different people can use Roshiki techniques to a higher degree. Like Luchin is Rokyogun. But he's a vice admiral that's not named Garp, so he gets fodderized pretty quick by the giants. Dory and Bragi show up, and they're basically like, we don't know who y'all is. Because they looked at the bounty posters, and they're like, we know who's on the crew. We don't know y'all. And that's hilarious because I had forgotten Frankie's bounty posters of the Thousand Sunny. So they have no idea who Frankie is because the bounty poster is wrong. And I kind of wish there would have been like a gag with Sanji, but they know who Sanji looks like by now, so they don't have that gag, but that would be hilarious. They're pretty easily convinced that, they're Luffy's friends. And I mean, I think it's the name drop that specifically gets to them, because Bonnie says Luffy, Sanji, and Vegapunk are back there. And Bonnie's like, you gotta go help them. So I think that kind of hit them where like, okay, they want us to help, so they must be at the very least good. They also go on to say that Vegapunk is the one that the scholar mentioned. And if the hints are moving right, because they mentioned Saul a couple times in this chapter, I'm wondering if they're talking about Saul as that scholar. Because realistically, I don't know who else it would be. The only people that are really alive and still connected to Ahara are Robin and Saul, so I think it would have to be Saul. Plus, giants, talking to giants, I think that all makes sense. Now, they're taking Frankie, Bonnie, Atlas, and Kuma to the giant pirate ship, not necessarily 1,000 Sunny. So I'm wondering if we're going to have two separate advances to Elbaf, one on the giant ship, one on the Sunny, or if they're going to travel together still. We get a few more Vice Admiral shots, and we get Dahl back, which we love. Probably the best Vice Admiral that we've seen in the new portion of the world here. Really want to see her go out and do some fighting, but just having her in chapter is good. Now, Dahl mentions that Saul was her commanding officer. And this is what I mean, because they keep dropping like little hints to Saul, 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 which is kind of out of the blue because, we haven't talked about Saul in a couple of chapters now, so clearly he's coming back up again. But that's interesting. I don't know if we got Dahl's age, but I think that would mean she's in her 40s, at least. Because Saul was her commanding officer over 20 years ago. So I doubt she started in the Navy or in the Marines when she was like 10, so I'm guessing she's going to be somewhere in her 40s or 50s, which you wouldn't guess it, but you know how old it'd be. Stepping back to the main conflict, Saturn has returned yet again from being punched off screen. And as he walks up, we get the conversation of Luffy, Sanji, and Vegapunk talking about trying to move Vegapunk. But Vegapunk keeps saying, like, if I move, I'll die. And I mean, even if that's true, if he stays there, he also dies. So at this point, and pretty much Luffy's like, whatever, just move him. Just forget about what he's talking about. Don't listen to him. Get him out the way. And I really like this panel of Saturn coming in and Sanji kind of staring him down while Luffy talks to Vegapunk. Like it's a really crispy panel. And when I first saw it, I was like, man, Saturn looks weird. Like, I don't know if he's just drawn weird or if he's actually weird, but something's off here. And it turns out, yeah, he's got some kind of weird power going on right now. Almost a second level of awakening, but more reminiscent to Monster Point Chopper 3 time skip. Because like he's not talking. He's just attacking. So like I'm wondering if some level of sentience has been traded for attack power. And even Sanji mentions that he doesn't even really look human anymore. And in this form, he appears to be completely coated in venom, which we'll bring up later because that's going to be an interesting feat. But as Saturn approaches, Vegapunk talks about wanting to keep the whole Bonnie having control thing a secret because this puts a big target on her head. If she can control the Pacifista, she can control a huge part of the Marine Army, and probably one of the strongest parts. I think this also gives more credence to her having the ability over Seraphims as well as the Pacifistas. And Vegapunk basically wants the Straw Hat crew to protect her for the rest of her life. Now, I don't know about rest of her life, but I do see Bonnie being a travel companion for a little while. She might end up getting the law treatment, where she's like an honorary Straw Hat. And it might even be deeper than that, because to be honest, Bonnie's crew has been fairly non-existent. Like, we got to know at least a little bit of Law's crew. Like, we knew Beppo. Beppo was kind of like a mainstay, and then we have Sachi and Penguin, and even like Jean Bart to some degree. Like, even if it's just 4 different crewmates, we still got to know them as, individual characters. Bonnie's crew is just Bonnie's crew. But at this point, if she leaves the crew, if they go back, whatever happens to them, it really wouldn't impact us or the story. But there's no telling how Oda's going to play that. We could get another Yamato situation. Anyway, Saturn starts just attacking, and his legs almost adopt I want to say like a rubbery kind of look to them, because they turn into more like tentacles. Like, instead of just being spider legs, they're like tentacles. They're stretching and waving, trying to hit everything in sight. And Luffy's dodging, Sanji ends up picking up Vegapunk, and they're about to dip. In comes Kizaru, who not only kicks Sanji, and I mean, Sanji kind of ate that kick, not gonna lie. Like, if this is a normal lightspeed kick, the same one that hit Hawkins very early in Sabondi, then that's a good Sanji feat. Like, he's still bleeding a little bit, but he didn't get launched away. He immediately recovered off that. And then Vegapunk gets hit with Amano Murakumo. Now, looking at the Amano Murakumo, where it hits specifically, it looks almost like the same spot that Saturn stabbed him in. So could it be possible that Kizaru is like cauterizing his wound, keeping him alive? Because I mean, if the hole is there, the hole is there. Like, this isn't going to do more damage to that spot because it's already empty. And we even get like a small little panel of Kizaru with the shaded glasses not saying anything. So I definitely think there's more to that stab than just him trying to kill Vegapunk. Now, Sanji picks him up and tries to leave again. This time Kizaru's on hot pursuit. You see him turning into light, but Big Goat Luffy steps up, grabs Saturn and Kizaru, holds them in place, and says, y'all ain't going anywhere. Now, what I wanted to mention before, with Saturn and his new form being completely covered in poison, is that Luffy is gripping his face, which I would assume is also covered in poison, and nothing's happening. And I know that Luffy has a high resistance to poison, or like, I guess it's specifically venom. I don't know if there's a huge difference, but Luffy has a resistance to it. But this seems to be like on contact burning. So not so much as, poisoning the body, but destroying the body. And he's still touching it like nothing's happening. And this is in his giant form. So he's Gear 5 giant Luffy right now. So he's got Kizaru pretty much completely closed up in his hand, and then he's just gripping Saturn's face. And I feel like this is a good testament to what Oda does with Gear 5, where yes, some points will be a little goofy, but it's not like it's always goofy. I think for the entirety of Gear 5, it's never just been always goofy. There's always a serious or like an epic moment with Gear 5 where it's like, okay, I'm having fun, but also we're gonna play it a little bit more serious. So as Luffy's holding those two back, Sanji mentions that Vegapunk is smiling. And after that, we start hearing a broadcast go out that's coming from Vegapunk. Now, this looks to be a satellite. Because, I mean, obviously Vegapunk is here in Sanji's arms, but he pretty much has a connection to the island and can easily, like, use another body to report in. And he sends a broadcast to what he says is the world, Sekai. And if we trace back to early Egghead, one of Vegapunk's things was wanting to share knowledge with the entire world. So I wonder if this has anything to do with that in particular, where he wanted knowledge to be available for everyone. Like, is this a prototype of his basically internet? Or is he just basically hijacking all the communication devices and sending a message out? Either way, he says that he's going to tell you the truth about our world. Now, that can mean a lot of things. I really wonder if it's going to be as cut forward as we think, because the first thing is obviously like Void Century. He's going to tell us about Void Century, but even Vegapunk mentions that he doesn't know everything about the Void Century. He has very strong speculation. And if he does have like certain information, why is he choosing now to say it? I think it's something a bit more relevant to what's happening now. So like, it's probably less about Void Century and more about what the Marines are doing, the return of Joy Boy, and the return of ancient weapons. I would say it's more suited to that, because I don't even know what the world would do with information on the Void Century, to be honest. So I think spreading that, especially if you don't know the exact facts, might not be... That doesn't seem like something Vegapunk would want to do, because he's all about science and, progressing the world that way. I don't think he's going to spread rumors or speculation. What he's about to tell us is, I'm assuming, going to be very factual. And we are also not on break, so we'll be having a chapter next week. And of course, this chapter sparked a bit more controversy on Twitter because the Agenda piece was going crazy with the Sanji versus Kizaru last week. There were so many memes, everyone was clowning Zoro, everyone was hyping up Sanji, and you kind of get this, and I wouldn't say it's an L for Sanji, but it's not what anyone really wanted. People wanted at least a clash with Kizaru. I mean, some people wanted Sanji to 1v1 Kizaru, which was never going to happen. Or at least not at this stage. It's still too early for Sanji, and I would even say Zoro, to be 1v1ing admirals. Still too early. But basically, Sanji's just getting away again. And it gets kind of tiring. Like I said, the panel of him staring down Saturn, it's so clean and crispy, but nothing comes of it. It just feels like a lost opportunity. And the way it comes up on Twitter is kind of what I figured would happen, where it's like, the way Agenda Piece works when it comes to Zoro and Sanji. Usually Zoro's feats get downplayed, and usually Sanji's feats get overhyped. Like, if Zoro does something, then there's a drawback to it. There's always something wrong with it. If Sanji does something, usually it gets hyped up no matter what it is. Like, Sanji did this, Sanji did that. And when it flips, like when the roles reverse, where Zoro's getting overhyped, there's a lot of kickback on bringing that down. When Sanji gets overhyped, I wouldn't say there's a lot of kickback, but it hits different because honestly, Sanji doesn't get as many W's. So it's like, you want Sanji to have more in his arsenal to fight with. Personally, I really would have liked to see Sanji get a fight here. He's not my favorite straw. Actually, he's my least favorite Straw Hat, to be honest. But I still want to see him get some fights because I think his fighting style is probably the coolest in the entire group. So like, I want to see more of it, but you know, I feel like of all people in the crew, Sanji is probably one of the biggest jobbers. And I really can't wait to see how the memes go this way, because that's one of the best parts of Agenda Piece is seeing how the memes react to this week's chapter. Of course, that's once you sift through the more serious pieces of Agenda Piece where people are giving you full-length explanations as to why their agenda is factual, which defeats the whole purpose, but you know, we won't get into that right now. Instead, let's talk about Witchcraft Works. That is the most recent anime that I finished, and honestly, I kind of want some more of it. Like, there's nothing like, I would say, crazy about it. Like, it's not a blockbuster, it's not a you gotta watch this, but it's a good time. I like the characters, I like the story, pretty cool. I want to see more of the characters like fleshed out. I feel like it was kind of condensed and we didn't get a lot of time with everyone because they introduced quite a few characters. But because it's only like, I think 12 episodes, we pace past a lot of things. For example, I want more of the chairwoman because she's like the strongest person in the show and she really doesn't fight. She kind of just shows up, does a thing or two, and then they take her out of the anime to let the actual main characters fight. And I'm like, but I want to see her fight. It's also, it's oddly animated because when they do the CGI thing, and I don't love CGI in anime. Like it throws me off a little bit, but I didn't mind it as much here because, I mean, it worked with how their powers work, and it was pretty amusing. But sometimes they just go off with animation. Like, there's certain scenes where they just feel like they have to use their entire budget on the animation when I feel like it's not necessary, but I'm thankful for it because it looks amazing. But yeah, it's a nice little anime. Like, I would give it like a 7 out of 10. Decent, enjoyable, a fun little watch. If there was like multiple seasons of it and each season was very similar, I probably wouldn't stick through the whole thing. I would probably need it to progress a little bit better. But for, I mean, like, you know, a short 1-season series, it's pretty nice. As far as gaming, still playing Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm still loving it. I'm on chapter 14 now, I believe. So the plate just dropped, everyone's dead, and we're trying to find people. You know, people still have hope. Nah, they all get crushed. Which was pretty sad. Like, it progressed in a way that kind of hit me each time because it started with Biggs, and I was like, okay, that kind of sucks. I liked Biggs. And then Jesse, and I was like, oof, I really grew to like Jesse. Jesse might be one of my favorite characters in the game. And then Wedge, who was like, I'm mad about Wedge because I thought Wedge was gonna like make it out and live for everybody else. Nah, he gets stuck in there. He still gets crushed. At least as far as I can tell. Like, we're at the part now where I'm going back to Sector 7, trying to see if anyone survived. And based on what I saw, no one should be alive. They should all be done. Like, Biggs didn't even die from like the plate falling explosion. He just got shot up. And actually, same with Jessie. She blew up. So the plate falling should just be the cherry on top. But man, this is such a fun experience. Like I said before, I really haven't gotten into the Final Fantasies, and I played like I said, I started 7 and 16 at the same time to see which one would capture me more in the intro. And like, I've been enjoying 7 so much that I'm not even hyped to go back to 16. Not saying I won't go back and play it, but I think what I might do is play 7 and then jump into Persona and then go to 16 after that. Like, this game is making me a lot more interested in the whole Final Fantasy lore. Because as far as I know, like, not every story is connected. Like, there are bits and pieces that kind of exist in their own portion of the universe as far as I can see. Like, the first one I played, which I think was 13 some time ago, didn't seem like it had any connection to what's going on here now, but you know, that's years in between. So I probably couldn't make a connection even if I knew what was going on. But like after playing this, I want to play Rebirth, which I probably won't because I'm not about to buy 7 again, especially if it's like $70. Even though it looks really nice, and like a lot of the things coming out about it are like you can change like the main character, you can play as anybody. As far as like a main character goes, like when I play Remake right now, I always make Tifa the leader. So that when I go into battle, it starts with Tifa. But if I could like play Tifa the whole time, that would be crispy. That's almost worth me buying again. Almost. But probably gonna pop some more into that today and later on this week. I'm wondering how many chapters. I honestly thought it would be like 14 would be like the length of it, but I think we still got a little bit more to go here. And last but not least, I I spent a lot of time kind of just brainstorming some ideas of I want to make some other videos and just adjust content a little bit. And I was like working on thumbnails, I was working on all this kind of stuff for the channel, for the podcast, and for some reason it just clicked in my mind to make a Has-Been Hotel Megalovania video. And I spent like 3 hours making this really stupid video that I'm definitely going to upload. And it's going to be terrible, but the idea just tickled me so much that I had to stop everything else that I was doing. I had to stop being productive to make this video. So y'all are going to get it because I was forced to make it by my own self, and now I'm making you all watch it. So look out for that on the main channel. Otherwise, that is going to do it for this week. Next, we're going to have the new chapter. I really want to get to the point where I watch the live action, and I can talk about that. I've seen the first episode, and I am thoroughly impressed with the first episode. That's all I'm going to say for now. I'm going to save it for when I do the actual series, but I did enjoy the first episode. And I also want to talk about Avatar, because I plan on catching some episodes of that and seeing if it's going to turn out to be a huge flop or actually okay. We'll see how it goes. I'll catch y'all on the next one.